Internet Girl was bad enough as it was, but whatever the—
I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of here.
Really? Zucchini? From well-written songs like No, Black Swan, how come a company that started from absolute nothing, having one of the best-selling artists of the entire world, ends up making music like this? How just exactly did we get here? And that is exactly what I'm going to be doing in this video. Now, disclaimer before I start. This is not a BTS video, a Katseye video, an HYBE video, New Jeans. I am not gonna go over detail in every single one of these groups. This is a HYBE videos focused specifically how their entire trajectory as a company has gotten into this point. Let's get into it. Now, as any good on-the-ground humble story, we had to start with none other than the man himself. The man, the legend, the icon, Mr. Bampiri. Now, Bampiri is kind of like the trace of Pyle in this amount of evidence because it all really starts with him. Originally, he started to work with HYBE Entertainment back in 2005. He worked on G.O.D's Sky Blue and Bad Boys and Rain's Bad Boy. He eventually left and started Big Hit Entertainment. During his many interviews over the years, he has said that he is an old school producer, and the original message that Big Hit started on was music and artists for healing. And as we move forward, we will see that this messaging kind of gets completely lost and thrown down the window. But originally, he was really like vocal heavy and really focusing on the messaging of the music. He started to really lay his foundations from the years 2005 to 2010 as the Hitman era, and we'll see him actually say this.
Hey yo, Hitman Bang introduces Hit It, the second audition. Rap, dance 노래로 상대방의 기선을 제압해. He
first signed a vocal trio called 88. They weren't idols, they were singers. And this kind of show his original intent was purely on the music. In 2010, he co-managed a group with JYP called 2AM. And I think this was his first taste of kind of managing or giving that agency vibe to his company. He formed Home, I think that's how you pronounce it. And they produced massive ballads and kind of created this bread and butter that kind of let the light on Big Hit as they grew as a company. Now, what really happens is that from the years 2010 to 2012, we see the foundation of BTS. As I mentioned previously, he didn't originally want to make K-pop idols. So what really stands out here is the fact that a producer Pyong gave him a demo of RM at the time, and he saw him rap, and he was like, oh, I'm sold on this kid. He saw a lot of potential and talent in RM, and that's when he decided to take the jump and started making a boy group. And the original plan really was to make a hip-hop group because at the time, I think it was definitely different, and it wasn't something that had been done a lot in the scene of K-pop. But I think this quickly changed from the years 2011 and 2012 due to multiple reasons. Number one, I think he realized that in order to stay afloat and stay in the market, he was going to have to pivot into more of the K-pop idol group, even though the sound was really hip-hop. But the turning point was really their glam scandal. A lot of people assume that Le Sserafim or New Jeans is kind of like HYBE's first attempt at a girl group, but actually no, this was done before by them in 2012. I actually think glam was very cool and ahead of the time, but what ended up happening is that one of the members blackmailed an actor and ended up in jail, which is kind of crazy to think about. This left them in deep almost bankruptcy because they had to pay a lot of legal fees, and just due to the lawsuit itself that happened from the blackmailing, they had to scramble, and this ended up pivoting to putting all their resources into BTS. Now, I'm not gonna go too much into detail about BTS because there has been like so many good videos made out there around like BTS's history, and the members themselves have talked about how much they have struggled due to this. Since the company was in bankruptcy, they had a lot of struggles. They were I think they were only in one apartment. They had a really shitty studio. It was just like a lot of different things. But I think this is kind of what set them apart from the other groups. While SM, JYP, and YG were too focusing on different groups, Big Hit was only focusing on one. Think about this, is that truly there is an advantage to any position in life, and that was their advantage. They had that small company feeling where they could truly just pour everything into them. And they started seeing the fruit of this with the most beautiful moment in life, or when they started creating this universe of storytelling that really made the fans connect. And it was just beautiful to see. Actually, this ended up kind of making the print for other types of stories for all the groups. You know, they started copying them and making different things. But as BTS grows in popularity, this is when we start to see the big shift on them as a company. Up to this point in 2017, 2018, we have truly seen them getting on that message of music and artists for healing. All of these messages about youth and coming out of age and conflicting with insecurities and school, I mean, truly set them apart. I think Big Hit didn't realize that BTS is not only a K-pop group. When they were being so global, and in 2017, the BBMAs award, I think it truly changed things on how they were gonna move from that point on.
Army, our friend, and thank you very much. You know, we still cannot believe that we're standing here on this stage at the Billboard Music Awards. Oh my gosh.
I think Bampity, who at the point was the CEO, he realized that in order to continue taking BTS to more to the global stage, they needed more money than they were actually getting from just BTS alone. So in 2018, he received a $190 million investment from this company called Netmarble. Now, when I was doing research for this video, I found this really interesting because the CEO of Netmarble is actually Bampity's cousin. And I think whether you like him or not, like, that's kind of smart to sort of keep things within the family and keep the power within. Because usually when you get an investor, at least from, you know, what we're told and what I've known about investing, is that you have to do things to keep them happy. But if it's a family member, I think it will be much easier to kind of manage that financial relationship with them. The reason why he also took this deal that I forgot to mention is because at this time there was a lot of talk of BTS going into the military. Now, they didn't end up doing that, but on a recent article, he actually spoke that in the year 2018, they were having multiple conversations with the members because this was kind of looming around, and they were kind of scared of what that would do to their company, because up to this point, 95% of their revenue came from BTS alone. So truly, they had to pivot to doing something else. So to kind of break this one artist course, in March of 2019, they ended up debuting TXT, Tomorrow by Together. TXT was really their first attempt to kind of prove that they could do it without the members. From the years 2019 and 2020, we see their diversification plan. So as of 2019, they acquired Stories Music, which is GFriend. And this is their first claw in the monopolization era and how we see them take over different small labels and groups. Then on May of 20, the next year, they acquired Pledis Entertainment, which is the home of 17 and West. Then on November of that same year, they acquired Co's Entertainment, which is the company owned by Zico, who's a really famous rapper in Korea. Now, these are like roughly 3 companies they took over within the span of 12 months, which is kind of crazy, but it kind of made them sink from like, oh, I'm just, you know, a label company, to I'm the owner of multiple labels. Another thing to mention is that due to all of these investments that were done and kind of their desire to be more in the tech side of things, we see Weverse. At the time when BTS started, a lot of fans would just use Twitter to communicate and to share, you know, things with their favorite artists. And I think strategically enough, selling, they saw potential in this and they created Weverse. Weverse, they started selling merch, they started selling videos exclusively for Weverse, just doing a lot of different things to find other ways of income. Also, something to know is that during this time, the pandemic was happening and BTS was seeing even more success due to Dynamite going really, really famous in America. I think this really played out well for them, let them kind of marinate their plans even more because BTS wasn't going to the military anytime soon. It was definitely looming around, but I think for their plans as a company, it actually played into their favor, which is why in 2020, we see their IPO, which is initial public offering. This means that the company goes public and the public can gain shares or buy shares within towards the company. Now, the number one reason for going public is because they also needed more money to start buying even more companies and to start expanding more. And one thing to know is that I feel like this is where we start to see kind of like that music and arts for healing message kind of getting lost. That messaging for sure was bound to get lost because it's not longer about just serving the fans, it's also serving the investors. Now, when this IPO went public, BTS became a millionaire. Not a millionaire, a billionaire. Dude was banking, he was making money. And because of that, he actually gifted shares to other BTS members, making them multi-millionaires overnight. But besides the point, when you have shareholders involved, it's not like, oh, make hip hop music and focus more on what the music is. It's more about like, no, what is palatable for the public to consume. In March of 2021, they officially changed. They were not Big Hit anymore. They were HYBE, and this is the company now that we know them as. HYBE became the very top of the umbrella. And I think 1 month after that, they buy Ithaca Holdings, which, if you guys don't know, Ithaca Holdings is Scooter Braun's company, who he has been like famous to know to managing people like Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato, Justin Bieber, like just major musicians, musicians. I believe the entire investment was $1.5 billion to take over that company because there were so many major artists here in America that had so much value. And again, in time, like I think we come back to the fact that they really wanted to prove that they could do this without BTS. Besides wanting to make money, I think that was such a big fear, and they really wanted to prove to shareholders and investors, I can do this without them. And they continue their expansion. Even in 2023, they bought Quality Control, which is the company that has little baby Amigas, and the investment was $300 million. And what happened after that? In 2023, all the BTS members went to the military. I think what also was a saving grace again was the fact that all of them did not go at once. It was very strategically planned, so they were still dropping music throughout the years as all of them continued to go to the military. And now as of 2026, on the latest report, only 50% of HYBE's revenue actually comes from all the American labels that they bought and their entire expansion. So but what has happened lately? So during this time, 2024, 2025, something major happened. And I think this is the first crack we see. So Big Hit, HYBE as a company is becoming this umbrella. They have all these labels and investments done. And throughout these years, we see them just continuing to drop more different groups like Le Sserafim, New Jeans, Islet. And in 2024, we see the infamous Civil War is the first crack in this entire system that they have created. So I'm not going to get too much into it because I feel like it's just a lot of information to go over. But essentially, Minhee Jin, who was the producer and the mind behind New Jeans, accused HYBE of copying her through Islet. She argued that the content, the music, and even the visuals were too similar to New Jeans, and this presented a threat to her and the group. And this ended up with a massive like public scandal. At some point, she ended up going it was a live of her with her lawyer. She ended up wearing this cap and this green shirt that kind of went viral all over Korea and the internet. And she even showed private text messages with BTS. She discussed going to a shaman, asking her if BTS were to go to the military, if New Jeans was going to do well. Later on, it kind of turned into her kind of influencing the members. So people saw her as the entire villain, but also HYBE was not doing what they needed to do. There was an entire accusation of bullying from staff towards New Jeans, and the New Jeans member feeling like they were being casted out due to all of this. There was a lot of back and forth. They completely went on hiatus, stopping all group events. And now, as of the end of 2025, they kind of came to a conclusion. They lost the lawsuit, and they ended up being a group. However, one of the members, Danielle, she's actually getting sued. I believe it's like $30 million, which is kind of crazy, like being sued for that amount of money. But they are accusing her to continue to do activities that kind of broke the contract. And I'm sure there was other things involved, but they didn't go too much into detail. Actually, the member did a live, and she discusses how sad she is she couldn't be with her member. And I think they truly are trying to make an example out of her. That happens when you try to fight back against this system that they have created. And also during 2024, we see them to change to HYBE 2.0. Bampity actually steps down as the CEO. I believe he still is the chairman of the company, but he steps down as the CEO. And the new CEO actually completely changes that vision of music and artists for the healing. And they started using terms like music platform tech framework. And this is when we see the rise of the 30-minute songs, which is so annoying because they started taking out the bridges. To pivot to the 2-minute 30-second was the popularity of the song Cupid, which was like 50/50's Cupid and New Jeans really kind of was like, oh, like maybe this is the new thing we need to start to be doing. And like, it's not even when only no New Jeans and Illit that they started doing things. Also with Hyphen's Outside, I think it's like a 2-minute and 1-second song. That's currently really short. And of course, Katseye, because they don't have songs that are that long either. And I think this is kind of like the artistic loss, because usually in the skeleton of a song, the bridge is more like the emotional part. It's kind of like the part that really makes you connect more to the messaging of the music. And also a song that's under 3 minutes, it's more replayable. It's more palatable and more replayable across TikTok and social media. So without that bridge, the music kind of feels more like a loop rather than this like emotional journey you're going with. Or even, it doesn't necessarily have to be emotional, but this kind of like journey that you're going through in 2025 and 2026, to really pivot to them wanting to have music more of an asset. I think music for them is not longer the end product of them as a company, but more of a marketing asset. Like, again, to get fans onto the Weverse platform and buy merch, buy the light sticks, buy the content, buy into what the artist is doing or selling. And we see kind of this fruition from them that they have expanded to India, Latin America, and here in the United States, we saw the rise of Katseye. Katseye essentially was a girl group that was formed in a partnership between HYBE and Geffen. And they decided to use the K-pop methodology, training the girls in singing and dancing to have them be superstars. 120,000 auditions. These girls, they went from a 2-year period of extensive training to get to where they are. And I think that, after going through so much to be an artist and to wanting to create music, to have these girls who, by the way, they're so incredibly talented and just like completely out of this world, to make music like Eat Zucchini, like I would be crashing out if I were them. And while the Danielle New Jeans lawsuit was going on, you had hits like Gabriella and Gnarly on the background running for Katseye, making them money. And it's actually really funny because they were doing a lot of buying this past few years. They're actually losing money. As of, I think in the last quarter of 2025, it was roughly 42 billion wons that they have lost, not only in the making of Katseye, but also dealing with the entire lawsuit. And how beneficial to them that BTS is back. Now I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that BTS is back, but I think it's definitely a bailout, because they have spent all of these years trying to prove to not only us, but trying to prove mostly to the investors and the directors that they can do it without BTS. And it's so funny that BTS is just coming along on spring of 2026 when they were losing so much money in the last quarter. Oh my God, like, and I just think it's interesting timing that, hey, BTS is going on tour on March 30th of next year. And like, listen, BTS has more borrowing power. They have shares in the company. They have been there since forever. I don't think they have the same, they have way more autonomy, like a group like Katseye for sure. But I just think it's interesting that they were losing money in the last quarter of 2025 and now the beginning of 2026 is like, hey, we're back. Buy your tickets, buy your concert tickets, you know, and yes, they might be winning lawsuits and money, but I think when it comes to the culture and the fans, they're definitely losing that war. Like with this recent song, Internet Girl by Katseye, you know, someone can make the argument that it's fun and don't think too much of it. But when you have producers that are known to make good music, you are purposely making music. Like you have a juvenile and half-baked song that is getting trash online, so of course you're going to be losing the cultural war. I mean, with Katseye have completely blown this year, and I truly have so much respect for the girls, and this is not hate to them, but I think for their longevity of their brand and their artistry, they need to pivot. And this is kind of where I really want to end the video. I mean, do you think that them as a company should continue making short form of music and continue just catching on trends? Or do they need to completely pivot and start making more long-term music and start making better music for all of their artists, not just BTS? But anyways, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video and just stay well. Thank you.